You have to turn it off because it echoes.
You turn the volume off.
It echoes.
Perfect.
You have to turn the volume off.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you just put on mute?
Okay.
Is it good?
Think so? Echo? No echo? Great. And now
Jenny?
we can see.
No, no echo. You guys sound good.
Great.
That's
And now we can see Gwen's reactions to everything we discussed right up there. So there you go. The star of the evening. Everybody, welcome to this November 15th meeting of the Manhattan Community Board 4 Transportation Committee meeting. As we've all gotten used to, there are some set things I need to say here. And then we can get going. And MCB4 has adopted a hybrid meeting policy whereby we will meet both in person and virtually. All community board committee meetings will require an in-person forum to come to order and conduct business. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability or an extraordinary circumstance, as defined by the New York State Open Meetings Law. Excused committee members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Committee members, can you close the door, someone? Committee members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on. We encourage members of the public to join virtually. The MCB4 hybrid policy can be found on our website. And tonight's meeting is still being recorded and live streaming on YouTube. Awesome. So I think as we customarily do, just to go around and introduce ourselves to those who may be joining us virtually, or check out this YouTube video in 10 years and want to know who we all were in the room. So my name is Jesse Greenwald. I'm one of the co-chairs of the committee.
Christine Berte, co-chair.
David Warren, committee member.
Pete Diaz, member.
Rodney Washington, member.
Colin Brown, transportation planner with Sam Schwartz.
Alice
Long, whatever.
Alan Osler, member from Justin.
Charlie Todd, member from Hell's Kitchen.
Sanford Miller, member of the committee.
Gwen Billick, member of the committee from Chelsea.
Gwen, you really missed an opportunity to talk directly into the camera.
Okay.
Great. So we have a pretty full agenda this evening, although one of the items that you can see was postponed, but I'm excited to launch into it because there's definitely some topics that are going to be really good for discussion, and I'm looking forward to what everyone thinks this evening. So our first item on the agenda is an update from the MTA. I see we have Alberto with us. Thank you, Alberto, for joining us. And he's going to be telling us about their plan for new elevators at the West 23rd Street subway station. So Alberto, I will kick it over to you.
And there was, in that item was also an update on the grades.
Oh, and the grades. And the grades, don't forget the grades, Alberto.
There's good news on the grades. I know that was a hot topic last committee meeting. I can touch briefly on that if that's okay, if I can jump around, or is there a preference on how you want me to talk about the items today?
No, just start with the
Whatever.
with the elevator, right?
Yeah, whatever you plan on, whatever you plan on discussing.
Okay, got it.
We'll
Okay.
ask follow-ups if we think.
Got it. So what I'll do now is I'll jump into the elevator replacement at 14th and 8th Avenue. So I'll share my screen briefly on that. Can folks see my screen?
No, I don't know if
Janine,
Janine, do you need to let him share his screen?
Yeah, you have access to share screen.
Okay.
There we go. Let's go.
All right. Okay, great. So as you know, MTA is really focusing on making sure that our stations are accessible, whether that's an elevator installation, a renewal, and other items as well. Presently, the 14th Street and 8th Avenue ACEL station is slated for elevator replacement, and that's part of a larger bundle of 8 stations throughout Manhattan. The other stations are further up north and Midtown as well. But for this station, it's slated to begin late November, the 27th of November, around then. We're expecting to have work begin for this elevator to get replaced, with completion around second quarter of 2024. As you also know that we are creating the 14th Street at the 6th and 7th Avenue stations down the road are also becoming ADA for the first time, which is really exciting. So that work, much more disruptive, But that work, we can definitely circle back on a larger update because that project is much more expansive and pronounced, which is exciting for those two stations. So here, as you know, that this station serves 8th Avenue line in Manhattan, the A, C, E, and L. This is the current elevator as it is now. Again, it will be removed out of service on or about the November 27th and be restored the second quarter. I do want to focus on what the alternatives to this station will be, accessible alternatives. So for the L train, you can take the Lower East Side bound M14 to Irving Place for the Union Square station, or take the A, C, E, or E trains uptown to Lincoln Center to 34th, sorry. So either 14th Street Union Square is one option, or the 34th Street Penn Station is the other accessible station option while this replacement work is underway. For street level, again, you take the Brooklyn bound L to Union Square and use the elevators at that station, or head uptown to 34th Street for the elevators for street level access. So that's for that. For street level impacts, we have a 40-foot staging area, which will be on the 14th Street near the northeast corner of 8th Avenue. It's adjacent to the sidewalk, but there will always be pedestrian access on that sidewalk. A 5-foot minimum clearance will be maintained for pedestrians access. So we will not close off the sidewalk, just a portion, namely around the work site, around the elevator, and some additional space so that we can have material stored there during that time. So again, what to expect? You will see barricades with this signage that kind of indicates why there's no access, the work's underway, along with travel alternatives, which is, we want to have the best communication with our customers, the general public as well. But also the elevators will be more reliable, have a better ride, and be upgraded as well with security systems, whether it's cameras, etc. So it's not just the elevator. We have other minor things that will be replaced and upgraded as part of this project. So next steps, the elevator connecting the mezzanine to platform will also be replaced as part of the contract. So currently there's 2 elevators in the station, right? We have street level to mezzanine. That will be the first elevator replaced. Then once that's replaced, we will do the mezzanine to platform, the second elevator as part of this project. But that will happen at a later stage, obviously. So future notice that we are taking care of both elevators at the station, replacing both newer, more reliable elevators, which is exciting, well-deserved, and forthcoming. So here's our information here. As you all know, you have my direct contact. Any questions related to this elevator project, please do not hesitate reaching out to me. And I'll definitely get you any information you may need. So that's that in terms of the elevator replacement project. Any questions related to that, I'll definitely answer those now.
Specifically related to the West 14th? Any questions on that? Yeah.
There's a bus stop near that elevator. Will there be any concern about that? It's a bus stop there at 14.
Yeah, fair question. So before we commence any work, we will ensure that the bus stop can be usable by customers. If not, we will make notice of where that temporarily got relocated to. But that will be shared with folks way in advance should that have to happen. But as of right now, we don't see that being the need right now.
Okay. I think we're good with that. Do you want to talk about West 23rd?
So West 23rd, we do not have that at the moment in terms of an ADA project right now, but we are looking forward to hear back any concerns or requests that you may have as a board, and definitely walk that back for future capital plans. So 23rd Street was not one that we mentioned publicly or that we have on board right now.
I guess there was some miscommunication. I was excited for this because I did think that you guys were coming here to tell us that.
No, we did. No, I'm sorry. We did share that ahead of time. I'm sorry the miscommunication happened there, but we did make that notice that it's not on the radar right now. But that doesn't mean it will not be, of course.
And
Well,
what about 23rd and 8th?
That's what I'm referring to. I'm sorry.
Oh, what about 23rd and 6th?
23rd and 6th.
23rd and 6th.
Yeah.
I can get back to you on that one. Yeah, that was not brought up to me on that one at this point.
Okay.
Well, this way, okay.
All right, well, I don't know.
So tell us a little bit how you are prioritizing the,
Yeah.
you know, the request. I mean,
So-
let's
so-
assume today we send you a
Mhm.
beautiful letter.
Right.
Say you want it tomorrow. What happens?
So we look at a number of things, right? Fair question, Christine. Thank you for that. So we look at one, equity in terms of are there other stations nearby? Let's say one station away that has an accessible station. If there's a large gap in between accessibility for riders, we do want to make sure that gap is lessened, because we do want to have our system accessible for all of our customers as fast as possible. We also look at feasibility in terms of how fast can we get it done, as well. Every station, as you may know, it's unique. Not all are the same. But we also take that back in terms of, you know, what the community needs are, but it is an ongoing conversation. So there's no, I guess, magic equation, but one of the main things is current accessibility, also equity in terms of communities and distribution as well.
So there's no plan somewhere that has the West 23rd Street stations, you know, scheduled for installation of elevators in any future? There's no document sitting anywhere that says, ideally by year 2025, 2026, 27, we'll install elevators at these stations. That doesn't exist unless you really do it on a case-by-case basis.
Well, that capital plan hasn't been finalized yet. So that's something we're still working to do. The next 5-year capital plan you're referring to, we're finishing out the 2020 and 2024 capital plan right now. And then
So are you, what is the schedule for that plan, for working on that plan and finishing that plan? The
So
capital you're talking about?
right. So I can circle back to you on those details for that capital plan as they stand.
No, but I'm saying, what's the schedule? Are you doing it, you know, starting in January 1st, and then it will be, you know, settled and finished in June? What's the process of the capital plan?
I guess you're asking, like, are we in the notice and comment period now for that, or has it kicked off yet, or are you saying that's, yeah?
It hasn't kicked off yet, but we are taking feedback. But we did release a 20-year needs assessment that contains a lot of areas that need attention in our system, entire system, not just New York City Transit, but Metro North, Long Island Railroad, kind of the needs that we need going forward. And it's not.
Needs assessment is like, you know, 20 years is like a big thing, right? So I'm talking about the next capital plan. If we wanted our elected officials to go and say, we want it.
Yeah.
When are they supposed to go? When's the deadline? Who do they go to? Etc.
Yeah, so definitely, like today, we're taking back the need for the 23rd Street ADA as one item you've definitely expressed to me. We're going to take that back, but any items going forward, share those directly with me, and I can have our team put them on the radar for you and the community board.
And back to the question before, do you have a queue which has been approved? A queue of stations saying, okay, this station is going in 25. We have those 5 in 25, those 6 in 24, etc., etc. Like a plan, you know, a capital plan.
Right. So currently we're wrapping up the 2020 and 2024 capital plan. Once we have the queue, as you mentioned, we will start public discussion with the boards in terms of feedback and overall plan for that. So that's still
when you say wrap up, I'm sorry, I'm insisting on that because I don't understand. So when you say we're wrapping up 24, what does that mean?
The current capital plan,
capital
plan, that's the plan that we're finishing up.
But by finishing up, you mean you are spending the money and finishing spending the money, or finishing writing the plan? I don't understand.
No, we're finishing the projects that are under that capital plan.
Got it.
Oh,
Okay. So now is the period to talk about the 2025 capital plan.
Right.
You are
And
accepting
creating the
feedback.
new queue,
Okay,
right?
great.
Right.
So then we will
apologize
definitely,
for that, so
that's
definitely.
okay.
No, that's fine, it's
But-
like, it's complicated.
I think it's very important then that we advocate very, very strongly for, I'm like honestly surprised, I'm not saying this to you, Alberto, as this, if this is your fault, but I just assumed that the MTA had a long-term plan to install elevators at every station that doesn't have elevators. And I did not realize that they've just been doing this on an ad hoc basis
No,
based on when communities
It's not
request.
really had a
well, not necessarily true. We do have a plan to be totally accessible, but in terms of which stations are in each capital plan, the 5-year plans, that is what gets decided. So there is a plan to have the system totally accessible with the next, I think, 2032, something like that.
Right,
Yeah, so,
but that would be good to have
Yeah.
like that matrix you were talking about, because if you have like 20, 200, 300, I'm sure there was a zillion
Yeah,
of stations, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there should be a matrix somewhere which says, okay, this one is the most priority, right? And then the political process comes in and say,
Well, so one
Right.
thing, real quick, and I'm sorry, but the other thing I'll just suggest to, or ask is, I mean, would we have enough time to, I mean, it sounds like we have to advocate for priority of these stations, and if we're gonna do that, you know, I would think that whatever letter we write, maybe we should hold off to collect enough evidence to show exactly how many people this is impacting and try to get more feedback from the community, but sorry, go ahead. David, go ahead.
Well, I'm quite shocked that this is not on the agenda. I mean, that you're not, MTA just took this away because I'm involved in certain organizations in the community. We're actually going to send letters in support of this. So the community is going to be outraged and there's going to be some type of backlash. I mean, just like all of a sudden you don't know anything about this.
Well, we never announced that there's a station, that project was coming to that station, but that's not to say we're not gonna do it. So
Well,
I-
somebody must have, because it not only came here, it came to my Democrat club.
right,
So, you know, so somewhere along the line, this is a bad decision to ask people to take buses. That's kind of like torture, especially for a handicapped person.
for the replacement you're saying?
Pardon?
I'm sorry, so you're referring to what, the elevator replacement? I missed that last part.
It's asking a handicapped person to take the buses. I mean, the buses are like rotten, for most of the time, especially if they take not on 14th Street or where there's bus lanes, but where there's no bus lanes, it's torture.
I think Alberto, he's referring to just the lack of the elevator on West 23rd and asking people to have to take a bus to either 14th or 34th.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah, just a quick question. How do you do your needs assessment? Is it based on demographics, age groups? You look at a community district and say, these are the locations where we have most aged population, and we will definitely make sure that we provide for that, for example, or any other sort of criteria such as hospitals or whatever else that you might be thinking about. Can you give us what your guidelines are for putting this together? Whether it's a 5-year plan or 20-year plan?
So what I'll do after this call, after this meeting, is I'll send you, Jesse, the 20-year needs assessment along with the other items requested. But to answer your question briefly, sir, the 20-year needs assessment is more about the physical needs we need to have our system to state of good repair and the annual investment needed to give great service across all of our agencies. So for example, I'm sorry?
it's not ADA, that's what you're saying, it's not specifically ADA accessibility.
Right, that's part of the, right, it's more like infrastructure, state of good repair, because overall we have $1.5 trillion in assets that we need to get maintained over all the agencies. So it's a massive undertaking.
Okay.
before I open it to
No, I understand that. The question I have is, do you actually look at the demographics? Do you actually look at the population? Do you look at people's ages? You don't.
No, but this is maybe something we want
This
to
is
put in the
very-
letter. We need to say, we want a needs assessment and we want a methodology
Yeah.
and then we want a queue,
But
right?
we should look at the,
Number,
when we get it, I will send around the needs assessment, we should all take a look at it to see exactly
Yeah,
how it's,
so-
we should be familiar with this as a committee on what exactly we're
Absolutely.
doing.
And this was recently released, maybe like a month or so ago. If you need, I think it might be some value having that presented to the committee. So I can have our team come present on that 20-year needs assessment, so we
That'd
can
be
understand what's going on and what we will be asking going forward. But also what we were doing or trying to do to improve your experience with the agency along our services. But ultimately, it's to provide you better service.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. I'm gonna hold other questions from my committee and open it up to the public, who I'm sure have questions or comments, and then
Do you want to
we can
talk
talk
about
amongst ourselves about what we, the grades, sorry. Oh, wait, we gotta go with grades, Alberto first.
my grades?
So cute.
Yeah, it's a little grading, but yeah, okay, go ahead.
So there's some movement on the grades. The biggest grades that we're working on right now is the grades currently on 23rd, 25th along 8th Avenue. Those grades, if you notice, there's also some demolition happening in that corner, right? There used to be a Rite Aid. Not sure that rings a bell. No.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the ones that we're undertaking right now. Those grades will be repaired by first week of January.
Okay, what about the rest?
The rest, those are on another contract. The ones southern from that, so across the street, those will begin first quarter of 24. And the grates across, the ones I just mentioned, on 28th in front of Penn South, that area there, those are currently being fixed as we speak.
Yeah, so that, but what about Hell's Kitchen? We gave you like a huge list, right?
Yeah, the Hell's Kitchen.
There's a huge list in Hell's Kitchen where, I mean, the things have not been changed for the last 300 years, right? And we can't walk on them. So we're all, and I'm glad that Chelsea is getting fixed, definitely. I mean, this is not one or the other, right?
I took good pictures.
You took better pictures, that's true. But, you know, there is a whole list in Hell's Kitchen, which was specially concentrated in 34 or 30 to, you know, to 42nd, which is, or to 45, and that's an area where we have so many commuters, right? So what's the movement on that?
So half of those, it's a multitude of contracts put under one job. So those are slated to be worked on middle first quarter through the summer. So that's what we're looking at. We had to accommodate some schedules with some theaters and other
It's okay, as long as you talk about them.
Right.
It's just like it looks like they were forgotten, you know? As long as you tell me, okay, they're going to be done next summer, that's fine.
right.
Yeah, so this is the first quarter, the second quarter of 24?
We're looking to have that begin on that and during that time frame.
Begin then, right?
Correct.
Right. Okay, terrific. So that's.
The grades is question on grades?
Yes.
Just a quick question. Are you replacing the grades in kind? Meaning, are you changing the design, or it's pretty much the same?
No.
Yeah, so the way the grades work is sorry, go ahead, sir. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead, sorry.
So the grades kind of serve ventilation for the station. So what we'll do is we'll change the grate, obviously, any concrete that holds the grate, but also the waterproofing underneath that grate. So when it rains, the water doesn't go in and infiltrate the station. As you all know, that destroys the station and have what we have now. So
but also also with like the new grades, not these horrible.
No, that's replaced as well. So yes.
Yeah. You know, my question was mainly regarding rain going in. I'm just going to go back to elevators. All the elevators across New York City, is it the same standard design, or is something that keeps changing?
So now the elevators, a lot of the stations, if you'll notice the newer ones, that most of the stations that do not have an elevator period, but they're, instead of having the street to mezzanine and another elevator mezzanine to platform, a lot of our new elevators are, you can do street, mezzanine, platform. That's the new setup we're doing. It's cheaper, it's faster, it's a better experience overall for everyone, and it's easier to maintain. So that's what you'll notice as we go forward for new ones and replacements, if possible.
Okay.
So, I have one question. The dimensions of the grates themselves, the configurations, I think they're what, 1.25 inches, and about 3 inches long. Am I correct, or 2 inches long?
Yeah.
Because I've noticed that rats literally can go through those grates.
So I'm thinking that may be, you know, a small size, great, dimensions on those openings.
As
Might do
as long as the pedestrian don't go through.
Yeah, I mean, I can bring that. I can bring that back to the design team because no one wants rats in the system, right? So that's a fair ask. So I can walk that back and see what type of rat proofing we can do, whether it's a mesh or something. I can definitely walk that back and see what we come up with.
So let's get
Great.
the public.
Thanks, Vinny. Any other questions on grades? And then I'm gonna go to the public. All right, so, members of the public, if you have questions for Alberto on anything that we've discussed, the elevators, the elevator replacement on West 14th, the potential new elevators on West 23rd, or grades, please raise your hand and Janine will move you over.
Just show the other.
I brought over Roberta.
Roberto.
You have to get off, mute. You're.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hi there, I'm speaking on behalf of the Chelsea Reformed Democratic Club, which has voted unanimously for the following resolution. CRDC resolution to support and advocate on behalf of the Chelsea residents for creation of an elevator at 6th Avenue and 23rd Street at the subway station. Actually, 2 elevators, one on the north side, one on the south side. And whereas as CRDC has committed itself through 65 years to promote and defend the rights of all Chelsea residents, and whereas so many Chelsea constituents have various disabilities and limitations and should have equal access to public transportation, whereas the issue of access applies to those with disabilities, parents with strollers, pregnant women, seniors, travelers with luggage, and people of all sorts, and where the MTA has made a legal commitment that the subways will be 95% accessible by 2025, Chelsea should not have to wait 30 years for 2 elevators. Be it resolved that the Chelsea Reformed Democratic Club urges all of its elected officials to publicly support the construction of 2 elevators at 6th Avenue and 23rd Street, since the north and southbound platforms are unconnected, and urges our elected officials to require the MTA to install 2 elevators.
Thank you, Roberto.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public want to speak on this? Okay, see, Miriam. Miriam, we can move Miriam over.
Thank you, Roberta. Those words sound familiar, and so I won't repeat them, but I was the one who had presented it at the meeting. And I want to point out a couple of things. I'm a member of ACTA, and I work with some of the MTA staff who've advised me on the needs assessment, and the paper that I have sent to you is a draft of what the MTA has asked for specifically, the statistics, the data. It's several pages long, and I had planning to send it later on when totally completed to the MTA. I have been told, excuse me, that right now, the outer boroughs are being prioritized because there are many transit districts there where people have to take multiple buses to the subway. And Manhattan technically, statistically, has more subways with elevators than the other boroughs. But that does not address the needs of Chelsea, which I see as having a paucity of elevators. And to continue what Roberta said, along 23rd Street, Hudson River to East River, 5 subways, only 1 with an elevator on Park Avenue South. These are all separate lines which do not connect with the one accessible station and do not comply with former Transit Authority head Andy Byford, who said accessible stations should not be more than 2 stops apart. I was at the MTA when he announced that and explained that when he was still in office. The station on East 28th Street is only partially accessible, and I don't believe full accessibility is currently planned. Chelsea is a diverse neighborhood with many senior centers, many NYCHA housing, and the Haskell Library for the blind and Braille. They're a great need, and chose Celis 23rd and 6th Avenue because that's also, excuse me, I'm just getting, sorry. Where it's a residence for people with disabilities and visual impairments, and is a hub for many diverse events for people with disabilities. The subway station was closed for months in 2018 for renovation, no elevator added. This discriminatory practice is now a violation of the 2022 class action suit. The law applies going forward only, and they will not go back retroactively to install elevators. And I've actually spoken to the DRA lawyers specifically about that. The subway station at 23rd Street, I think, has the greatest possibility of MTA approval. I've already spoken to the directors of Celis Manor, and they said they were thrilled at the idea of this being addressed. And they said they think everybody there wants to sign the request, and even said to me that some people have no hand movement. Can they make an X? And I said, yes, but put their names next to the X so I know. And I have pages of that I will submit with signatures of different organizations in Chelsea who have will be supportive of this. Hudson Guild, Stein Center. I spoke to the director there. So there's a strong need and a specific location of organization and residence for people with disabilities right in Chelsea, which is why I brought this on the agenda, because I know some of the details that are going on with which stations are being prioritized, which areas. And Chelsea is being neglected, and we don't want to wait 30 years for the next elevator. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you for pushing this and getting this on the agenda. And I don't think we saw that letter, but make sure that goes to Christine and I and Jesse Bodine, obviously. But we'll take a look. Because we want to work off of your very hard work already, and we do appreciate it. So thank you, Miriam.
It was just sent yesterday by Janine, and it's a draft of the letter to the MTA, not the original one I sent you, and it's much more detailed.
I may have personally missed it. We may have it. Well, we have it. Sorry, we do have it.
I think Miriam, you seem to describe a document which is bigger than what we got. So you may want to resend the whole, needs assessment description, because I think we got a document which was just one page.
It should have been a couple of pages. I'll resend it afterwards. Should I send it to you, Christine? Because I have your email, and you could send it on. The needs assessment I got from the MTA directly, and that's how I organized that particular letter. I'm not quite finished with it. I am told that it's due October 2024 for the 2029 capital plan. And so this is where I've been going around getting endorsements from places.
October 23 is that. Wait.
No, the next capital plan is 25, 29, and the document is supposed to be given to them, and I had the address and people to send it to by October 2024.
Got it.
Okay.
So yeah, if you have that information, we can, kind of double down on that.
And it seems like Alberto also will separately send.
I'll send you their accessibility guidelines. which is
87.
what I've been working on, and my draft of the MTA letter.
Thank you, because we don't want to, we want to incorporate what you've already started. You should send yours separately, and then we can do our own thing simultaneously to try to,
Okay.
double up here. All right, anyone else from the, thank you, Miriam. Anyone else from the public? And then I will propose something, but okay. So now as we move into committee discussion of what exactly we want to do here, I think it does sound like we have a little bit, I mean, what we're talking here for elevators is for the next capital plan, for a 5-year plan. It sounds like it's due in, you know, almost a year from now, which means that I think we should, as a committee, take the time to bring in, collect the evidence, a lot of which Miriam has clearly been doing this work, but talk to advocacy groups, disability rights groups, various, all the various tenants of certain locations that are, effectively retirement communities within our district, and take the time to really collect the evidence so that by the time we put in this letter, it's not just we demand this because I'm sure everyone wants an elevator in their district, but we come with the facts to prove it. So that would be my suggestion, is we hold off on writing anything, but plan on submitting something within the year.
Are you suggesting a subcommittee for this?
Ooh, no, I don't think so. I just think we slowly bring people in over the coming months.
Yeah. Good.
I mean, you could write, thank you, for the presentation, it's something that's forthcoming next week.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, just to keep record going.
Like that, so we can slide back to, we can write a little thank you, Alberto, for your presentation.
What about writing what Jaren was talking about, which is, give us a sense of the criteria, and then also give us a prioritization of what you have put together. I mean, they are already a priority, and a bunch of, let's say, if 200 people have already put in the queue, right? It's just, I mean, we want to know what is in the queue, right?
Well, it doesn't really sound like there is a queue for the next capital. Yeah, it sounds like the next capital plan doesn't have a queue. Yeah.
I would suggest a couple of things. One is that they tell us what the criteria is. They select, when they look at demographics a little bit more carefully, that'll be good. And the second thing is 14th, 23rd, 34th, 42nd with cross streets, which are the major kind of two-way streets, tend to have more traffic. So I think if they can create a list of priorities, I think that might also be helpful for us. Just for us, they can share that with us.
A list of, wait, sorry, then the second part was.
Yeah, I think you get it. I think you can see what the requirements are, work over that, then do something like that based on what we see, what they add, subtract, that kind of thing.
But we have a request for 6th Avenue and 14th, so, and 23rd, so, and then the 28th, the 23rd and 8th Avenue came from, it's Penn South.
Yeah, well, if we're gonna ask for one, we should ask for both, because it is ridiculous that both, and it's mind-boggling. A building is going up over on 8th Avenue right now on 23rd, and like, what a nice opportunity that would have been to put in there.
In there.
Yeah.
But
the only thing that I was gonna say is going back to Darren's point. What concerns me is that the emphasis is not more on the disabled, and I might have not been hearing this right, but for me, it's all about helping. So that's such a priority.
Right.
And I guess what concerns me is that something we lost here, because like in Columbus Circle, I've never understood the elevator there, because it doesn't go, like there's one that doesn't go to the platform. It goes to where you pay to get in. I don't need an elevator. Maybe I will someday, but I guess what I'm saying is, I think we should just get ahead of this and find out that the
criteria is
all right.
really.
So we'll write a letter saying we will following up with a more specific ask, but in the meantime, it would be helpful if we understood your criteria better for select, even in the current capital plan, how you selected which elevators.
Yeah, give us an example.
Give us an example.
Example of the queue in the current plan.
And how you.
Because that will give us
I would definitely add that we should look at. Suggest some criteria, for example, the age group hospitals.
Well, not yet, right?
Well,
maybe get the criteria and then go and say, okay, these are missing or whatever.
Got it.
And then we want at the beginning to thank them for 14th Street.
Yes, we will thank you for 14th Street.
Right, which is that, and we
We are
thank them,
grateful.
we
Let us
thank
not-
them for the
not
grades.
express our-
We thank them for the grades and.
I would say are they great? No, they're not.
And then we confirm the dates. We'll say this is our understanding of the dates,
Yeah,
right?
great. All right. Are we good with the letter as just discussed? We need to summarize it again, hopefully not. All right, is there a motion on the
Motion for that letter. Thank you.
Okay.
second? All those in favor? All those opposed? Present not eligible or abstain. Thank you very much, Alberta. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for listening to our discussion.
No worries. It's helpful in the process, and I'll get you the 20 needs assessment information, the criteria, and other items that we discuss. Hopefully by early next week, I can do that for you.
Great, thank you, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Have a good one.
Have a good one. Talk soon.
All right, moving on to item number 3. Item number 2 is being postponed. We have Mr. Schwartz with us here this evening to present the benefits of daylighting for street safety. I actually, well, I'm just gonna let you jump right into it rather than me try to give an intro, but it is an issue for us to talk about.
Well, maybe we can say why we are putting that on the calendar, on the
Oh,
agenda, which is like, there are a lot of community boards which are currently writing resolutions about that. And therefore, we felt that it would be a good timing to have our board opine on it at the same time.
I'll introduce myself again to those. My name is Colin Brown. I work transportation planner with Sam Schwartz Engineering.
Sorry.
No worries. Sam Schwartz, the person, is unfortunately not here tonight. It would be great if he was. And I'm here basically just to kind of run through. I think this committee has reviewed daylighting the topic before, but I'm here just to provide any help I can in terms of walking through some of the safety benefits that it brings, any questions people might have, and how we use it in terms of our urban planning, transportation planning approaches as a general approach and best practice for designing safe streets in any of our projects and how that might apply to CB4. So I'm happy to talk as long as needed on this, or answer any questions.
Can you first start with, I just think for people who might not be familiar, what exactly daylighting is, and then,
Right.
sorry?
Yeah.
Do you have something? No.
No.
I sent a presentation to you.
It's on the Dropbox.
Okay.
Do you want me to bring it up? I can bring it up.
Janine, thanks.
Cool. And thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
It's very nice.
I appreciate the invite. It's always great to come talk with people about this.
All right, here we go.
There's quite a few slides. I don't know the easiest way to move through this.
Well, I'm not in control, so you're gonna have to say next slide. Next slide, yeah.
Here we go.
So we can move through kind of just to set a baseline so everyone does understand this first few slides, a definition. So defining daylighting is any design technique that brings pedestrians at crosswalks into better visibility. So as I'm sure everyone here and on the meeting is aware, in New York, often cars are parked right up to the crosswalk and often in the marked crosswalks. This is illegal but rarely enforced, so there are some difficulties there. And what this does is present a real safety challenge for pedestrians crossing those crosswalks. Imagine you are a driver approaching a crosswalk with a green light. You don't see a child, a stroller, anyone crossing. Often these are large cars or even trucks. So it presents a real challenge and something that we try to solve through design. So moving on, I think the next slide will just show a visual of what daylighting looks like in terms of a design approach. So this will, and we can go through these next two slides. This is just an illustration of some safety conditions. What we're looking at here is, I believe, CB2 in Brooklyn. So you see the orange and unfortunately the red dots are fatalities from the past few years. But really the takeaway here is that the majority of crashes happen at intersections in New York City. So this is where we have the most pedestrian activity. We have pickup and drop off activity, vendors, everything else. So when we approach this from a safe systems approach, we always try to design for safety first. There's of course enforcement, but we rely on enforcement last. That's usually the most expensive and the least effective approach that we have. So as much as we can, we want to create redundant systems that anticipate driver errors and anticipate sometimes bicycle and pedestrian behavior that is not in keeping with the design of the street, but reduces the impacts of that. So the real key here is that mistakes will happen, but we want to reduce the harm from those mistakes through the design. So we can move on to the next slide. And maybe actually the following slide as well. This is again just showing an example of daylighting. In this iteration, kind of a final permanent stage of daylighting is extending the curves at crosswalks, immediately approaching crosswalks. You can phase daylighting. I'm sure everyone here has seen kind of tan paint with flex posts or planters. That's an interim treatment that the DOT uses. And usually this permanent solution comes about when streets are repaved for capital cost reasons. But really what you can see here is it shortens the crosswalk, so it's safer for anyone who might have difficulty crossing. It also provides benefits in terms of keeping ADA accessibility clear. So what's not pictured here, but those ped ramps, the pedestrian ramps, are often blocked by cars, blocked by other elements in the street. If it's raining, they're often covered in water. So what this daylighting approach does is really make sure that those are as clear as possible. But the main point here is, the main takeaway is that it's a safety approach above anything else. We can move to the next slide.
Before you, in our district, we had 693 people injured in the last 12 months.
Wow. You want how many months? 12 months?
Yes. October 22 to October 23, we had 693 injured people and 5 people killed. So it's not something abstract for us.
Yeah.
So I think this slide and the next few will just provide a few examples of what daylighting. You can see daylighting, the elements highlighted in yellow here. And then if the next section, we can go through these maybe quickly. I won't spend any great amount of time on this, but just some visual examples of what these kind of phased approaches to daylighting might look like. There's different elements and of course different intersections. So there are arterials and avenues where you need different treatments. There's also bioswales and greenery that can be incorporated. Of course, we try to think of stormwater management, and this image really shows pretty well. On the left, there's daylighting treatment of an interim treatment, and on the right there is not. And it's to kind of illustrate the point, there's a person standing behind the car on the right, and you can't see them. And this is from a driver's perspective, it's difficult. If that were a green light, you would have a difficult time seeing them.
So that's the design that is on West 22nd Street. Remember, we had
Many meetings about
it and how it should be changed, etc. So they are, bump out in the middle, but at the end of the street, at each end of the street, there is a narrowing like this, which is a daylighting. We have also installed 4 of them, two in Hell's Kitchen and 1 in Chelsea, right? Remember, 17th Street. Yeah, which we tried to. We did a little bit of that.
Great.
I think the final section might just be a look at a comparison of Hoboken. So we can go through these, but as reference, Hoboken has actually, I think, on city streets, has not seen a pedestrian fatality in 4 to 5 years, and they've been very aggressive in implementing daylighting. It's as a
use this color thing.
secondary benefit, daylighting also narrows the road light, so it acts as traffic calming. There are layers of benefits that it includes, and you can also expand daylighting if you make the area, the clear zone larger, it's more beneficial, but it's also effective. People are often worried about parking needs on street. It's also effective at very short distances approaching intersections. So oftentimes it actually doesn't take up any on-street parking spaces, but it still provides some safety benefits. And the final 2 slides just again illustrate the phased approach. There's the interim kind of epoxy paint that goes down and bike racks or flex posts, and then finally on the final slide kind of a full build out is something you might see with permanent curb extensions. So you have more pedestrian area at the intersections and kind of a finished look. But that's a very quick overview. I'm happy to answer questions anyone might have.
So I just real quick, do you advocate for absolute universal daylighting, meaning are there streets where it wouldn't be appropriate? I'm just out of curiosity.
There are very few streets where you don't have normalized intersections, so sometimes when you have arterial streets crossing at an angle, that of course doesn't happen very often in CB4, but some of those intersections, it would be difficult to extend the pedestrian area. But writ large, I would say on a grid system, it's fairly easy. It's not a design challenge to implement daylighting at a traditional 4-way intersection.
Okay. And then the only other question before I pass it around is just, I think the only thing on the other side of the equation is parking. I don't know what else is on the other side of the equation. And I'm just curious, I assume you guys have looked at or thought, or have some estimate of what universal daylighting would mean in terms of reduced parking spaces. Not that that has to be a part of the equation we consider, but I would like to know what's on the other side of the equation.
Yeah, and I should have started by saying, so New York state law is in most other states and cities, you are not allowed to park within 20 feet of a crosswalk. New York City opted out of that a while back, so you can legally park up to the crosswalk. In reality, that doesn't happen, and often vehicles are parked illegally on premises. So I would say in a fair number of situations, you can implement daylighting without taking away any parking, because those vehicles that are there are actually legally parked to begin with. So even if you just have 5 to 10 feet approaching the crosswalk, that's usually not enough to fit most commercial vehicles that we see now. I don't want to say, I hesitate to say that it won't take away any parking in all situations, but in many situations, it doesn't have a meaningful impact.
That's incredibly helpful. All right, rest of the, good, David.
How could New York City opt in? Could city opt out? I thought the city really can't, if the state has a law, city can't
Opt out.
opt out. And the other thing is, because the city's under such stringent budget cuts and things like that, will that affect us, or this is such minimal cost setting?
I think it's something, to answer the first question, I don't have clarity on how the city originally opted out. I know similar resolutions and similar motions are going around different community boards across the city right now, and the city council looked, I believe last year or the year before, at integrating daylighting as a design approach. So I think it's going around a little bit piecemeal right now between all the community boards, and then it will go back up to the city council level.
Unlike if we would go to the state legislature, like the Assembly and the Senate.
So we opted out of the state law. The state law.
If the state law is in, you can just say, oh, I'm back.
Yeah.
That involves some politicking that I'm not I'm not as familiar with, but in terms of the cost question, it is a relatively, compared to other safety measures that are physical treatments, it's a relatively low cost, just because the materiality is not anything new. This is consistent with DOT's toolkit that you might see elsewhere in terms of flex posts, planters, at certain priority intersections, you might notice granite blocks like on Broadway. So it's something that's in the toolkit already. Certainly the permanent build out is a more substantial cost, but is usually paired with utility or roadway repaving, reconstruction to kind of consolidate those costs as much as possible.
Thank you. I was very surprised to hear about this 2015. That's, but two things, if I may. In terms of bumping up the whole safety issue, because you still have to go off the curb and then come up the curb. A lot of these curves are in bad shape, you can get through and then go back. How can you get the raised crosswalks incorporated into the whole system, which would help disabled people to get baby carriages and it would also prevent cars from seeing the light changing and speeding. Even though it narrows down, you're still going to go, through that intersection. So I think it should be, it's a great system going forward. I think we should be wrapped up a little more to do that. And my other question is for the public: how does the public advocate to get daylight? Do they need to come to the community board? Does it need to be a block association? Or if there's no block association, can a group come together and say, does it start here? Does it go to the city? This whole
Business as usual.
Yeah.
Well, my follow-up question to that was just gonna be, but is there a pending bill in the city or state that you guys are advocating that we support that would, or is this all, meaning is this being directed to DOT as DOT, can you start doing this on every street, or is there like legislation that's out there requiring them to do it?
At the citywide level, I'm not aware of any blanket legislation that's on the table right now. I think different community boards across the city, that's where the most movement is happening right now. They are individually advocating and putting motions on the table for including this, whether as a general design approach or specifically calling out intersections within their districts that they would like to see this treatment applied to, often tied with the safety statistics over the past few years.
Just want to say thank you for coming and giving this presentation. We advocated for getting this on our agenda last month, and then I think a week after we put it on the agenda, there was the tragic death in Brooklyn that of a young child could have been avoided by daylight. And he was on a scooter. He had the light. He had the walk sign. There's a cop in a truck making a left or right. I can't remember. Didn't see him. So I think in terms of like universal daylighting, what I guess what can answer maybe the question that Alan had about how we can move forward with it. It seems like our experience with 22nd Street is that we've had, if you take one parking space away from one block, you have 5 people that come up and are angry about it. But, I think looking, rather than blocks fighting it out block by block by block by block and parking space by parking space, that seems to be the appeal of universal daylighting. And I guess that's not a question, so sorry. But my question is, I should say that for discussion, but my question is, we have a lot of issue with people parking in spaces they're not supposed to park, particularly those who are supposed to enforce, like around our precincts. I live at 54th Street, and in front of Christie's on 54th and 8th, yesterday, there was a cop parked fully in the crosswalk. There was, a vehicle belonging to a police officer with a placard. So I'm wondering, in terms of the treatments, have you guys seen what hardening, because I see flex posts ignored all the time by law enforcement parking themselves on it. Is it the granite blocks or the planters, like, what's sort of the best thing in the toolkit that we could advocate for specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we've all seen the flex posts that after a month being up are destroyed and they don't look great and they don't serve the purpose of preventing vehicles on them. I think planters and granite blocks are the most effective. Those are of course a little bit more expensive and take longer for DOT to procure. I think maybe a compromise that might be worth pursuing is the DOT for other measures like bike lanes is investigating some hardening elements that are in between kind of permanent concrete and the flex post. So something like hardened rubber barriers that are low to the ground but prevent wheels from directly rolling over them. This might be, I haven't seen this kind of rolled out yet across the city, but I think it's a direction that the department is exploring right now in terms of some of their materiality. And I think it provides a benefit of being relatively cheap and more effective than flex posts.
What about backpacks?
I'm sorry.
Bike racks?
That's a great point. Bike racks, of course, they, just because of their orientation, they're usually in the middle of these clear zones. But something like that, and even other public amenities, something like containerized trash receptacles or anything else that might usually be on the concrete sidewalks that can be put in this zone. Those are also, I think, valid requests to be explored.
I'm just curious, since you mentioned Hoboken being such a success, did they have a particular design? Or was it more varied? Because frankly, they were successful.
Yeah, I don't think they had a particular design. They have a pretty wide variety of elements that they've used. They do have the advantage of having, in general, much narrower streets, so their daylighting becomes even more effective because it often narrows down the driving lane to maybe 10 or 11 feet, which kind of naturally slows vehicles. So I think that's maybe one thing to consider. One thing that they did do very well, and I should mention with physical elements in the clear zones, is you do not want them to be vertical any higher than maybe hip height, because then they defeat the purpose of providing visibility. So with all of these elements, you want them to be, physical barriers are the best, but you want to retain that visibility from a vehicle to the sidewalk, to the crosswalk.
Another question, and then I'm gonna move to the public just because.
I think the 20 seconds into this mentioned, they have a really nice posts. They do a pretty good job. And the other thing is that we have this bump that's sticking out. Pedestrians kind of take over, and then that becomes a kind of visual thing. Cars are very careful about that. So that's one. So I mean, it's working pretty well. The other thing that I want to suggest, this is really going to happen. DDC commissioner we have a meeting at one point, and one idea was capital budget X amount of money that's going to be earmarked for every year, in 5 years and 10 years, what happens. Take 1% or 0.5% of that and put it towards making these things happen towards overall safety of the city. I think it's the same amount of money that they will be spending regardless, but anytime they're doing any particular improvement, they should use that money towards that goal. I think we could suggest that as a meeting here to collectively think of why would we actually think about a plan of black nation. You don't have to be 1%. They can work it out.
So I have a question. I mean, the daylighting and love daylighting. Well, I don't call that daylighting. I call that neck down, but that's okay. Daylighting concerns me because if you put it clean and somebody parking it, doesn't work anymore. So I like to have something there. But indeed, when you're starting to work on the arterials, always feel more comfortable if we do split phase signals. Because obviously when you turn on another large street, I mean, the daylighting is not enough, right? It doesn't work enough. So I think it's great for the streets, for all the ones, you know, 1 lane, 2 lane street max. But for the arterials, we need to call out different treatments to really protect pedestrians.
And no, the question, and then what do you do with 8 having and 42nd streets right now?
No, yeah, you have to do signals because it doesn't work.
Yeah,
You have 1
the
lane
bicycle
turning, another lane is not turning, etc. Then you are turning on a 2-way street. So when you go over there, you know, the whole thing. Right. So that's something we need to call in our letter, that on arterial, it's not necessarily the best way. But to talk about with Hoboken, I think what they have is determination. That's the plan. They said, we're just going to do it. Right. So like the repaving, what you were saying about DDC, but we can ask that whenever they repave a street, not repave, call that resurface, which they do all the time, too much, right? But we say they do that every time, you know, they just install that at every corner.
I'm gonna turn it over to anyone online, any members of the public who have any questions, and then we can discuss this a little bit more in detail about what exactly we want to write. Ginny, if you don't mind moving people with their hands raised, I see Sherry.
Yes, Sherry's coming over.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, before we start, if you read the new open dining rules, they are proposing to have the shed all the way to the side, to the crosswalk.
Yeah, that's.
So on one hand, they say 20 feet, but the other way they're saying, oh, no.
So we're about to make this situation a lot worse.
Right.
Did Sherry disappear?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can hear you.
Hi, thank you. Sherry Liam, and actually I'm so grateful to Christine for bringing up the point, because that's actually a question I had for the gentleman from Sam Schwartz, which is that in these rules for proposed rules for outdoor dining, there is indeed an approach of 20 feet toward the intersection, but on the other side, only 8 feet is required. And I was wondering, in your, you know, in the philosophy about daylighting, whether there's a difference there in your design specifications for what daylighting means, whether it's dependent on whether it's a one-way street, if it's a two-way street, whether there's different requirements. If you could speak to that, I'd really appreciate that.
Sure. So broadly speaking, the approach side of the intersection, so the near side in the direction of travel is the more critical if you're on a one-way street. Just because that is where once vehicles are in the middle of the intersection, they generally have a better perspective on the far side crosswalk. So it's really that near side, that first crosswalk, that is the biggest challenge and where we see the most collisions occurring. I would, having not looked over the new open dining rules in detail, I hesitate to say kind of pass judgment on them yet, but I think maintaining that 20 feet on the near side would be critical, and 8 feet I would probably like to see a little more, but it's certainly better than kind of the existing conditions out there today, which are often, as I said, really right on top of the crosswalks at all 4 legs of the intersection. So I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of good here, but I think it will certainly be an ongoing conversation once those regulations get rolled out, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. All right, and with that, I'm going to move us into committee discussion time. Just sensing the room, it seemed like there is pretty strong support for daylighting initiative of some sort. It's just a matter of what form it should take and what exactly our request should be. I think that this is, you know, we throw statistics out like that about exactly the harm, and the crisis level of injury and death that we are experiencing, in our neighborhood. And, you know, I think this may just maybe one of those things that is easy enough, but also significant enough to call for legislation on, rather than try to have DOT do this on a piecemeal basis, and rather have our city council step up and demand it citywide. I mean, I don't, only because, you know, this isn't asking for some new, you know, multi-billion-dollar project that's never gonna be done. I mean, this one seems.
But I think if we were asking for, well, first of all, we need, as you said, it shouldn't be at every corner, right? It should be at the near corner, etc., and not the arterial.
Yeah,
Right.
there's 8
So
lanes,
we need
probably
to have like a qualification of where it goes, and then we could say, look, every time they scrape the street, when they repaint it, they put it in. And that's the way we propose to do it, in a way that is systematic, but not unreasonable. And it seems that it's going to be, you know, merged into a business as usual kind of thing, right? And because if we say we want a prioritization of all the intersection, it's going to be really like a nightmare. But they are redoing the thing, so it's a mess. It's a pain in the neck. We have to tell them 20 times what's missing, right? We might as well get something in the process, right?
Yeah, it's, I mean, I was on 49th Street today, and they
Yeah.
just put the markings are about to go down, and it's
Right.
exactly like it was before they did this whole process, and that's, you know, it's a dangerous street that has.
Yeah, and they could have done
no
something
safety.
better, right? So they need, I mean, you know, they need to have the cookie cutter design, right? And say, okay, we are repaving a street, this is what you put in.
Yeah.
Yeah, just very quickly, I mean, you might not need to go to city council. You might actually, we as a committee could apply to DOT.
Well, that was my
But
question
DOT has
about,
already rejected it.
that's not my question.
Oh, I didn't know.
That was my question, was simply
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
is it
sorry.
bigger than just the, no, so it's fine, that was my
Right.
initial point, is
No.
like, is this the standard letter that we write to DOT and say, listen, you need to get on this, or do we actually go a step further and say, actually, this should be required by the law,
Right.
and this is, and like, DOT is going to have to.
Yeah. I mean, I know what I'm saying.
You see, they rejected it after this?
Well, what they rejected is that I know from the street blog article or whatever, that there was a meeting, an oversight of the DOT. And there was
But they voted for,
what?
council also voted to increase the installation of traffic calming devices, and they talked about it. After this, it was rejected.
But it's not all the time. The request was universal daylighting.
Yeah.
Like what we are talking about, every time you do something, you put it in.
It should
right?
be
And they rejected that concept, so
would-
then they voted for
Yeah,
that.
I think what we'd be advocating for is to make the assumption that there would be daylighting unless DOT can show that the street deserves an
Right.
exception to it.
Yeah.
It should be the other way around.
Yes.
But
Sorry, I think you can write, you do the written letter, and then you copy your electors. Because this is, I've done this before, so I can tell you that it's an RFP change, it's such a tiny little change.
Yeah.
That's not even going to be 1%.
No, but they need to agree that this is what they want to do at the corners. You see, what they are not agreeing yet is that, you know, safety is more important than parking. So they have not internalized that, which they did in Hoboken. I mean, and they said, okay, forget about parking, we're going to do this, right? Here, they are not taking that position.
Well, they might agree, they just don't wanna fight with every block association everywhere in the city, but if there's a law that says you have to do it, then it's
Right.
really easy.
And
They don't have to
also
have
that, I don't wanna have to
say, well,
compete, I don't have to compete with all the other community boards that are got, like, we should also be getting this, you know, I don't
Yes.
wanna have to, David.
So,
Yeah.
in the letter, do you want to include planters, granite blocks, well, that's too, less
Granular.
granular.
Yes.
Hardening,
Okay,
you know.
No, we want to say hardening. I mean,
Oh,
it needs to
okay.
be, it needs to either by bike
Vertical
wrap or
columns.
blocks or something.
And I would also take it to a higher level. I would take it to the state DOT and to the, our assembly persons and state senators, because the states have a lot of control over transportation policy. you could even CC, Senator Kennedy, because he's head of the Transportation Committee of the State Senate, he's a member from Buffalo. I mean.
All right, we'll copy the DOT,
All right.
the state DOT.
See, and-
It's a good idea, we'll copy them.
Yeah.
It's a good idea, because that's their law, I mean, how come they are exempted, right? Take the place, that question, right?
So I guess I'm still confused though, so are we because it's a different ask to say we want legislation for this versus we want policy change, and maybe we're asking for both? I don't know, but I feel like I'm not trying to.
Well, I think we are recommending an operational / policy change.
Yes.
You know, that essentially says when you are resurfacing the street, you're going to put it in.
Okay.
Right? And then we're copying the elected, because if they don't do it, then the elected should have a hearing about it, right?
So we're writing to DOT and copying elected.
Yeah.
Is that what the other boards who have taken this on recently, they've taken that strategy of writing to DOT and copying elected?
They have, I think formally they've adopted measures or sent it to their full boards.
Right, which will do
that, right?
To formalize that policy change, but also, I think in the interim, identify specific intersections within their districts that might need more immediate attention than repaving can allow. So using things like Vision Zero corridors or priority intersections, corridor safety statistics as justification for pointing out specific locations that they would like
I
to
mean,
see.
in our case, most of our districts.
I think we need it all over, and like, I don't want it to pop out.
Fighting all this.
Yeah, I don't want it to be like, I want.
Look, the last time, and your organization, Sam Schwartz, did the design of 4 bulb outs. It took us 3 years, and the design was already made. And it's just, that doesn't work, right? We had identified the intersection, we said, let's do it, we did the design, and then we brought all that stuff ready to be baked. Nothing. So we need to find a different angle of how to get it done, right?
Well, maybe the different angle is then asking for legislation, like if you ask DOT for specific intersections, and they said no, it's kind of seems unlikely to me that asking for a policy change to do every intersection upon repaving is also not going to succeed.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we ask for a new technique, which is you repave, you change it, right? And we ask them to look at that, and then we send it to our elected officials, then we see what is the response, and then we can start pushing with the elected officials. And say, hey. Because we can't, it was too much work. I mean, I was doing all the work, but it's too much work to fight for
No, I agree with you. It's gotta be comprehensive.
4 intersections,
One intersection at a time.
3 years. It's ridiculous. I mean, just can't do that.
I just wanted to say one thing in favor of doing this. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when you talk about doing those, you're cutting the traffic down to 1 lane generally? No.
Generally, it doesn't impact the traffic lanes. It will be in the curb lane. So where today there might be parked vehicles. So it doesn't impact the travel lanes.
Okay, because I believe there's a law that says you can't turn the same, 2 lanes can't turn the same way at the same time. But that is the majority of the times that people get hit and cause them the worst accident.
Well, I think when you have 2 lanes, that's where I think we should have, the speed phase signal. Because that's, 1 lane is turning, you have to stop that lane, the other lane is going straight.
Yeah, well.
And that system is, that's what we have been asking of the DOT to do in most of our districts.
And I have a personal story that I got hit that way and run over, and it was a very bad break that I had, and it really, you can just screw up your life really badly. To not even, I mean, everybody always reports killed, but how much people lose work and all of this other stuff from getting injured, I don't know what the statistics are on that.
Well, yeah.
But we're,
So do we,
then I guess it looked to me from one of
Not
the
really, I have no idea.
drawings, that we're gonna cut it down to one lane.
Right.
I think that triggers a much larger traffic study usually, which when, unfortunately, but.
Well, they've already done the studies, that's how they know that that's where the number one place where people get hurt.
All right, so what I have for general letter going to DOT, demanding that the policy be whenever they resurface, they change streets to incorporate daylighting. That there are hard surfaces that go in on each of the daylighting corners, whether that be granite blocks or bike racks or whatnot. And that
If they're doing a full repaving, would they like do the, I mean, it's good for you, but if you're already doing the full repaving, would it really be like, oh, we're gonna do granite blocks, or at that point, like, okay, we just like actually elevate the curb? Maybe also have visual elements, but like the flexible or granite blocks are kind of a solution for when it's just a painted
right,
cut, and then like.
yes.
If you actually increase the curb, you probably don't need that, or use something else,
Yeah.
like a bike run.
Yeah, if you're doing the full repaving, often you would do the full curb extension, that would be the preferred design. The one caveat is on particular streets, the underlying utilities. Sometimes DEP needs access to particular manholes, and that those may conflict with the daylighting design. That's when DOT would use an alternate treatment.
Oh, so we could incorporate where appropriate, we would
curb when
encourage,
they
you know,
do the
that
curb.
raised crosswalk and curb extension. Where appropriate. Or, you know, you know. Certain dangerous corners that we'll have to figure out, but that's the general sense of it. So did I miss anything other major that would go in this letter? Obviously, everyone will have a chance to look at it. All right, motions for said letter.
You want to put in base crosswalks or that?
No, that was what I just said, yeah, like we'll also say, we'll encourage raised crosswalks and curb extensions where appropriate.
Motion as stated.
Second.
Sorry.
All those in favor?
Excellent.
All those opposed, or not eligible or abstaining? Excellent, yay, thank you all very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank
That
you.
was
I
great.
can't believe I've not heard of St. Schwartz, which is obviously a very large firm, and you are not St.
2,500.
Yeah, I don't know where I've been.
Hello, Sam.
It's about 15 years younger than you.
All right, great, next, item on the agenda is Christine, who's your thing?
Oh,
I'm here, take it.
Okay, outdoor dining.
Thank you, Xander.
I was just looking for that intersection. So you saw the spreadsheet that I made. I'm going to go open
Good and the bad?
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That was good.
So we want a bunch of things. One very exciting thing is that the Roadway Cafe, you know, the distance from the tree pits, which we have been fighting forever, and now it's spelled out, so that's really good. And so that's very good. How do I do that?
Wait, the roadway cafe, not the sidewalk cafe?
Well, there are two things here. There are sidewalk cafe and roadway cafe.
Yeah, but vis-a-vis the tree pit.
The sidewalk cafe.
Yeah, but the roadway, I mean, I guess you could put a roadway cafe in front of a tree pit, but
You would, right, but the distance, the sidewalk cafe, one problem we've had in the past is that the measurement was taken from, in case that there was no tree guard, the tree didn't
Okay,
exist, the tree
yeah.
didn't exist.
They measure from the curb.
You measure for the curb, so now we have a real measurement from the tree pits, whether it's covered or not, etc. So this is a big win. So how did we get here?
Yeah.
You have to help me.
No, sorry, you just moved
Yeah,
this.
I don't know how.
Two fingers.
What? Oh, two fingers.
Yeah.
Okay, so the things which are not.
It's the opposite of what you want to go.
Oh, yeah, this one.
Christine, you want a hard copy?
You got it?
You have a hard copy of that big one. I forgot my iPad. So just, I can thank you, but I.
It's all right.
Right. So the good, you read it. So the bad is, you know, we had that whole issue about sidewalk widening, where the zoning was asking the building to be built in a recessed way. And then they were proposing that the sidewalk, for the purpose of pedestrian circulation. And the proposal here was, okay, forget about that. We're going to put sidewalk cafe on it. So we had a bunch of meetings. And in fact, the way it came out is that it will be split 50% between the cafe and the clear path. And I've been going around to a bunch of people in Redney, in the industry, in DOT, etc., and say, hey, we need 65% because 50 is not enough. And I make calculation, I showed them the calculation. So I think people are pretty inclined to say fine, 65%. I don't have the final, but I think we would be fine on that issue. They are giving us 40 days and 30 days to say, okay, and we can't do that as a community board, we need to do 60 days. And the hours of operation are midnight and 1 p.m. And typically we have been approving in the BLP 10 and 11. So we are saying it should be 10 and 11 if there is a residential around, okay? Then the sidewalk cafe, there's a whole thing about the widening. There is an issue about putting the sidewalk cafe 8 feet from the bus pole, the bus stop pole, which is nothing, right? Which is you need to have like 20, 30, 50 feet because you have those long buses and people step down. So, and they are not thinking about the clearance for pedestrian ramp and street corners. So street corners, they are saying you can have your cafe going all around. And we know, we have the example of cafe, you know, when you go up the ramp, the pedestrian ramp, when you're on ADA, you need about 6 feet on the other side to land, right? Plus, you shouldn't be coming to the pedestrian crossing because you have people coming from both directions. So we are suggesting that they need to leave a lot more space there at the corners. And for the roadway cafe, same thing, the bus stop distance is not specified. So that means, I mean, how far away from the bus stop do you need to be? It should be 75 feet. And then I think we're talking about the space between cafe. They are suggesting 3 feet between cafes for, you know, on the roadway. If you go to 46th Street today, you have, your cafes are all back to back. If you have a 5, nobody can come out. So they say 3 feet, I'm suggesting 5, you know, just, and then the enforcement section is a disaster as it is today, where it doesn't tell you how many times you have to complain to get something done. So I think it needs to be like, you know, 2 times, a summons, and then it's gone, right? And it's clear and everybody gets it. And what else? Oh, it's a beauty. It says an operator can be exempt from a suspension based on the non-compliance of their employees.
Right.
So you're the boss, and your employee doesn't do the job, and they say, "Oh, I'm not paying the pet penalty." So
Wow.
You're in charge of your employees, right? It's little things like that.
I don't even get in. I don't.
Right.
It's a restaurant association.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying.
They slip that in.
And there's no
Not getting past Christine.
Right. You should charge the landlord for removal of the sheds. It doesn't say the landlord are going to pay for the removal of the sheds. It needs to be in there, right?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
I know.
Those guys are
often
good.
The owners are not, never there.
Right. And
It's just
the-
employees.
Oh, then, and they complain, and they say, oh, I didn't know, here's my cell phone, complain to me.
I mean,
Anyway, so that's it.
I tried looking that up, I couldn't find that, but, so I'm not briefed on that.
Right.
But I'm on the public bathrooms task force, and one of the things that we were suggesting, I don't know if that's in there, is that if you're gonna get an open restaurant, that you have to allow the public to use your bathroom, we're giving you land.
Oh, you want to add that, right?
Yes.
So it's mandatory that you allow someone to use.
Got it, I'll put it in. This is about sidewalk cafe or also roadway cafe? Either way?
Not either way, because you're giving away space on the road. Much sidewalk cafe hasn't.
Well, the sidewalk, you are giving away space from pedestrians. I like to give away space from cars. This is like all the time.
Right, because you are giving away space.
Yeah, but which space? Both of them.
Oh, yeah,
Both.
because you're giving away the space.
I mean, the pedestrian space to me is more valuable. As you
And
know.
either way, it's valuable.
Right, so we put it in for both, and then, we'll see.
Typically, I think for the sidewalk cafe, the city charging for more money.
No,
No, same.
no, yeah,
It doesn't matter, but still,
I got
will
it.
Also CC the public.
CC the bathrooms.
June, CC June. Yes.
You want me to see the bathroom?
Yes, yes,
The
yes.
state bathroom, the state.
Listen, Betty K is listening, so.
Betty K has her hand raised.
Betty K is right there with her hand raised.
In the daylight, instead of a brick, instead of a block.
No.
Put in APT.
It's too high,
Oh, that's right.
it's too high.
Okay, can I just read something?
For midgets.
This comes out of Brooklyn, in
Right.
reference to this, right? The result of these exclusive backroom deals, speaking about who was involved in setting this.
Right.
And in quotes, and everywhere piece of legislation that would allow any restaurant to open a sidewalk or roadway cafe anywhere. And therefore, everywhere, no limits on how many outdoor dining setups can be on any particular block. No distinction
Yeah.
drawn between commercial corridors and small residential side streets.
No,
Where
everywhere.
people live.
You said
And once
everywhere.
tried, forget about speaking when this legislation passes. Intro 31C contains no sound mitigation at all, nothing to prevent loudspeakers. Televisions in the sidewalk cafes are always set up.
No, loudspeakers is.
Well, they have something about that.
They have something about that, it needs to be clarified and
There's no
reinforced.
amplified sound.
Right.
And there's several version will be enforced, but it is explicitly against. it.
But I think we should say amplified sound from inside the.
But
I
how
think
did
it
they
says,
come up with- how
that
did they
too, it
come up
says
with
you can't
this money?
hear the sound from inside,
What?
the sound
With
outside.
the, like $5 a square foot, or what, how do they come up with,
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, they probably,
we're not going to win this one, so, but I want, once it's in place, we don't want to have aggravation, like, that's what. we
Oh, we're
want.
gonna have aggravation.
Well, what accusation?
Just one quick question, we were talking about grants and, ADA compliance in terms of, I think in front of any slope.
It's in there, right?
It's required to have.
Yeah. No, it's in there, it's in there. The thing which is not in there is the corners, like if you go at the 43rd and 10th Avenue, anybody can go there. There is a cafe, an enclosed cafe. And when Martin was in time, Martin Tree, my friend, who is now cannot walk, so he's on an old scooter. He could not, if he was going up the ramp, he would bump into the cafe. He could not get on the sidewalk. So I think that's what I'm saying, is like,
That happens.
yeah, it's very important that there is enough space at the time.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that whenever you have a curb cut,
Yes,
go up, you need to have minimum 5 feet.
Okay, so these are my analysis, the rest of it is asking for clarification, say, you said it, but it doesn't say blah, 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 right? So I'm adding the clarification, but that would be, we showed it to BLP. BLP is okay with that, so we would do a joint letter. And there is a testimony to go on the 20th. So we're going to make a letter which is subject to ratification and then we'll go from there.
I didn't mean to, Betty, I saw your hand.
Yeah.
Janine, do you want to move Betty over, and anyone else on the public wants to speak on this?
Wait, I
How is the?
have some comment first.
Oh,
Go
okay.
ahead, go ahead. Betty.
Excuse me about the service aisle,
Yes.
can you explain to me what that means?
The service aisle. So in a cafe today, you have the tables, and then you are supposed to leave 3 feet so that the server can come around and serve you. And the server is not using the sidewalk and the space reserved for the pedestrians. So there is the wall, the tables, the aisle, a little separation, right? And that's the cafe. And then the clear path starts. So what they have not put in here is no clear path. So it's the implication is that the clear path, I'm sorry, they have not put an aisle, so the clear path is going to be the aisle.
Does that mean, I mean, I'm kind of surprised by that, does that mean that like, if you have a restaurant where you have like a row of tables and like 2 rows of tables,
Yeah,
and you have a space in between them?
that's fine, that's the aisle.
That's the aisle.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be an outside.
No,
Okay.
but if you have only 1 row, it needs to be on the outside.
Yes.
That's the point, right? It's not, if you have a large thing, I mean, generally what happens is that it's very squeezed, and then we say we need an aisle. Okay.
Betty. You're on mute.
You are mute. Hello. Hi, Betty.
Hi. Hi, I have actually 3 different points to make, but one of them, if you want, I'll go back to the bathrooms because I have some information to add about that. It turns out I come from Community Board 1, and the resolution that we had was specifically that certainly at least the people who go to that restaurant should be able to have capacity to use and access to use the bathrooms. As it is right now, the DOB does not count any outdoor seating as occupancy rate that determines the amount of toilets that are needed for that restaurant. And so what we're asking is that the DOT, when anyone wants to participate in open dining, follow through and make sure the seating that they're adding does still meet compliance with the occupancy rate for that particular restaurant, at least at a minimum. As we found out, when you have the roadbed dining is only 8 months a year, the DOB says for plumbing, any temporary or seasonal doesn't count. So we're asking the DOB to please change their regulations specifically for open dining and count roadbed dining, which is seasonal, and should count for the toilet calculations for a particular restaurant. They should at least take care of those customers.
Are you suggesting that going forward, right? You can't go backward.
Yes, that's what CB1 is going to be doing with the open dining rules. But they're also having to go to the DOB and say, please consider now that there is such a thing is an ongoing permanent open dining on the roadbeds, which we know is going to only be seasonal, which is fine, except that exempts them from DOB regulations as far as the number of toilets the restaurant has to accommodate that kind of occupancy.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, that's a separate issue. Yes. On another issue, you talked about the sidewalk extensions. There's a real problem with, I love sidewalk extensions. I mean, we have FIDI and Tribeca. We have lots of really tiny little roads. But nevertheless, if you go to the regulations under siting, so I have to go back so I can look at my screen. Under siting requirements, it states, and I quote, "A clear path shall remain on the sidewalk or sidewalk widening after installation of a sidewalk cafe." It also states the clear path is 50% of the width of the sidewalk, including the sidewalk widening.
Okay, sidewalk widening refer to the zoning text, where a building is built recessed.
It's also the painted on area that's on the roadbed to extend the sidewalk.
No, it doesn't. Those are super sidewalk and they are not covered by this definition. A sidewalk widening is defined in the zoning text as when somebody is building a building back.
It's only due to the FAR.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because I want to make sure that that it does exclude, because otherwise people like me can't get up around the sidewalk.
No, absolutely. I mean, it should exclude the what they call the super sidewalk. Yes.
Great. And the other thing that we were concerned about is, I know near me, there is no way in these rules to tell you where the outline of the permitted area is for a sidewalk cafe. So it's fine that they put up barriers, but how do you know where the barriers are supposed to be? I've seen people, because their elbows, it gets in their way. They actually, the diners actually push the barriers outward on the sidewalk. How would you know that they did that?
We used to, do you remember the past resolution, the past regulation had the markings on the sidewalk, but then the DOT didn't want anybody to mark the sidewalk, so nobody was doing the markings. So, I think there should be a mark at the corners for sure, so that we can see where it is. You don't have to have a line the whole length, but you could have a mark at the corners. That's a good idea. I like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Thanks for joining. I see Sherry has her hand raised, and then we'll close it to public and we'll talk amongst ourselves.
Hello again, and thank you for allowing me to comment on this. I'll just try to be as brief as possible. I could go on, but I'll try to be very brief. The service, noticing the elimination of the service aisle was a welcome. I'm really glad that you noticed that. It was present in previous rules about sidewalk cafe service, and the fact that it's eliminated is unacceptable, because in practice, as I'm sure you know, when you walk on the sidewalk, if you've already eliminated the amenity lane or the furniture lane, and then you're left with the resulting width of the sidewalk, and you set tables out against a building, you need to count in that area where the wait staff serves customers. That's not a clear path for pedestrians to walk through. If you've, just by experience of any normal pedestrian walking down the sidewalk. So thank you for noticing that and asking for clarification or inclusion of that. My main request to you is that you ask for clarification on the material requirements of the roadway structures, because I think that the terms in there are still way too vague. They suggest that you can have a covering, which could be a roof, even though a lot of press has reported that it's only going to be umbrellas. I'm not exactly confident that that's the case. Seems to me like the corrugated lightweight plastic that's being used now would still be allowed under the proposed rules. The other thing that's mentioned in the material requirements for roadway cafes is vertical elements, which means that you could have a wall. It's whether you call it a wall or whatever you call it, it says that it does explicitly mention plexiglass or lattice panels. And you can look around and see many structures now that, although they have lightweight materials, they are thick plexiglass walls or crisscross wooden panels, lattice work. And finally, the platforms, which are requested, it's requested or required that they be lightweight and durable and easily removable in the flooring section. What exactly lightweight and easily removable means is very subjective. And so I think it would be very, for those of us who are concerned about the safety hazards and the durability, or the rats, or any of the other problems that have been encountered over the past 3 years with these roadway structures, receiving
good ideas.
You're receiving assurances that this is not going to be a shed, and then seeing what's actually in the rules. There seems to be a mismatch there. It looks like a shed. It seems like it might be a shed. So I think that, as I said, I could go on, but I'll just wrap it up with, seeing the requirements for daylighting and then looking at the siting requirements for roadway cafes, especially there seems to be some wiggle room in there for people to construct things that are between 7 and 10 feet high, which could pose a safety risk if you're prioritizing safety and daylighting and pedestrian safety and safety for bike riders too. That clarified. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so I think
all of it.
So my only question, I just have a question on the bathroom thing. I am confused. Sorry, I thought our bathroom endeavor was a lack of public bathrooms. Is not enough bathrooms in a restaurant? Has that been an issue?
No, I was talking about public bathrooms and she was talking about inside the restaurant.
I just don't know if adding extra requirements for a restaurant to build out, even in the future.
Yeah.
I feel like the market, I mean, like,
Go into a restaurant and the restaurant.
if it doesn't have enough bathrooms, people aren't gonna go anymore. I don't know if that's something that we need to.
No, I'm not talking about the clients of the restaurant. I'm talking about the general public. In other words, if I'm walking down the street and I have to go to the bathroom.
No, it's just asking whether we are in favor of adding the requirement for the bathroom which was described. I am not.
Yeah, like what was being described, as Betty was saying, that if you add occupancy outside, you should also be required to have additional bathrooms inside for the restaurants.
Well, and I could see that if these are new buildings.
Sure.
We could say for new buildings, keep it in mind, right?
What's that?
This is moving forward.
It's still, but even moving forward, I don't know if I need to add.
Hard to achieve, but I'll just give you an example. If you have a restaurant, it's designed for 50 people or 25 people, and they only one bathroom. When you add 20 people more outside, you're not only redesigning indoor.
No, exactly.
And that's
not more space.
No, there's not more space though, if it's not gonna work I just don't know if that needs to be legislated in.
This isn't like a large issue.
No, yeah, I don't know if that's a.
Well, today they're ready to design a bathroom, for example, they have unisex bathrooms. The old way was there'd be a separate room for each gender.
Right.
Now, it could be one room with a cubicle, so there are ways you can maximize space.
But we don't want to.
So your point being, we don't need to really address it in this.
Yeah, that should be
separate.
Yeah, I wouldn't put that in the requirement. There are already so many very important requirements. I don't want to say it's not important, but in the scheme of things, right?
But I definitely want the public to be able to use.
Yes, we got it. We put that in.
What, I guess what I'm wondering about that is like, I've seen some of the, like working group meetings about this, like. There's any of like, okay, you do like a big public plaza or something, like a building with a lot of capacity, potentially a lobby with like a large bathroom with, whatever, like 10 toilets or something, like. That seems like they could easily absorb additional people if the city then said you must open your bathroom to the public.
Can I
worry a little more about like, okay, you've got a restaurant with a capacity of 50 people and 15 outside.
Yeah, I think we're gonna, but yeah, I think I agree that this is probably not for this letter, but the bathroom thing, we can talk about separately. I think it's a separate issue at my point, sorry, yeah.
Well,
But wait a minute,
incorporate the
did we-
public bathroom, we're giving them space.
Hold on, let me clarify that. This is, I think I had written that what we already signed on a resolution
Yeah.
where we said we would like the restaurant to make
Available for the
for
public.
public.
Yeah.
So we want to include that in there.
In this proposal?
Yes.
Oh, sure, yeah, I get it, there was
As-
never a chance to
as a-
comment,
Right,
yeah, I understand.
repeating the thing that we have already said before, since we are talking about
And
cafe
sorry,
and restaurant.
I apologize,
Right.
so please, if you have more
Right.
to say, I apologize.
Comfortable saying all restaurants should, because then there's not gonna be one restaurant.
Yeah,
that's,
but
like,
this is the
overwhelmed.
resolution.
But if
we
you say like
already
this like there's one cafe in a street and that is
Yes.
like a small restaurant, and that does seem like genuinely.
passed. Okay, but then we are not.
Inconvenient thing to do to them. That
But
they
you're
cannot
saying,
reasonably
you
get.
were saying that. You're saying.
One at a time.
I'm thinking if there's one cafe in a block and we say just that cafe because it has a sidewalk
Okay,
cafe.
but that was a
They
separate
alone
discussion.
must offer a public bathroom. that's gonna be a significant problem for that business.
But didn't we
Every
already,
business has to offer a public
but
access
didn't
sign.
we already sign a resolution on that? We signed on CB5
Right,
resolution.
But I want to
Just
answer
looking at
this question.
just answer my question, which is, did we already, we signed on a resolution, which was multi-board resolution?
But it wasn't specifically about sidewalk cafe, it was about.
No, it was.
It was, okay.
It was. We signed on that resolution. So I'm just saying, we need that. We are not going to rediscuss this one just because we already
No,
signed.
but I want to answer
Okay.
one question. real
We've
quick.
already signed it.
But the
But
logic,
he's not giving-
I answered, I want to give you the logic,
No,
it's not gonna.
I totally understand the logic of fairness, I'm just saying there's a separate practical concern.
So we've already signed a resolution. We can repeat a little piece of the resolution here because it's related. But
Okay,
That's,
I'm fine with that.
that's the only reason why we would do that.
Sorry, not to belabor this about the.
Please.
What, is it that they would have to remove those signs that say for customers only? Is
Yes.
that what?
Yes.
Would that be great? I would love that, yeah.
Yeah.
See,
That's
Using our public space.
Okay, so
Before we begin, does anyone need to use the bathroom?
Yes,
Gotta buy some.
Okay, so I had a comment on amplified sound. I'll make sure that it's incorporated. I had a comment of outlining the corners, the service aisle, we already have that in the list. Material requirement clarification, I think that's a good point. And vertical elements, making sure that those things
Yeah.
don't become a shed just because by the definition of it, right?
Yeah.
That's it. And everything else was in the list.
Are we doing a letter, Christine? Is that how we're doing it? Or are you gonna comment? Do you know how you're writing it?
I have all these lines, now I'm going to go back to the rules and say.
Line, yeah.
Comment line by line, I mean,
Can you make an?
I created the lines.
Yes.
We didn't have it.
Yeah, the only suggestion I would add would be to have an open paragraph that actually addresses like. A lot of this is inconvenient, like will be bad,
No,
bad
like,
for pedestrians,
favor.
but I'm saying, I'm saying, I wanna stress the safety concerns about sheds that are on the corners. And I think that should be
Yes.
highlighted in the first paragraph
Oh,
before you, all I'm saying is to highlight that issue in the first paragraph before you go line by
You know
line.
what, I'll do that, and then you change the order.
Okay. Great, so all those we have a motion the motion would be for to incorporate all of Christine's.
All the comments, right, and then you guys collectively, if you think that we should put one thing before the others.
Yeah.
We'll do it, but I think I agree, I mean, safety should be the thing, safety at the corner, especially from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Motion, there we are, second, and all those in favor?
Yeah.
All those opposed, present not eligible, abstaining, excellent. Yay, thank you very much, Christine, for doing that, both committees, we're back to back with BLP from last night, we were all here, so, doing this exact same thing, although this committee has more comments, so.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for that, we're moving on to the last item before we get to new business, and this is on, New York City Council, I'm looking, what does INT stand for?
Introduction.
Is that what it is, number
Yeah.
758? Intro, all right, well, makes sense, I'll give you guys some background on, why this is appearing, for our discussion tonight, and then, my thoughts about it, and then we can proceed within the public, and then I'll talk about it, but, this is simply for our discussion, there's no presentation or anything, but, so, a city council, member has proposed, and I don't know when, but some time ago, automatic registration of all e-bikes. That is something in the last couple of months that has really received a lot of pushback from transit advocacy groups, from bike rider advocacy groups, from groups concerned about enforcement as well. I think the most significant concern, though, is just a lack of effectiveness there's two main concerns. One is that the overarching concern is that if you require all e-bikes to be registered, it just discourages people from switching to that form of transportation rather than and encourages people to stay with their cars because they don't want to go through the headache of registering an entirely new vehicle. On the other more, I think, pragmatic argument is simply that if the reason for the automatic registration of all e-bikes is because we are concerned with pedestrian safety, as we have been, and we're going to talk about that too, this isn't the best way to go about it, simply because the real issue is lack of enforcement, and trying to have the DOT create an entire registration regime, which would take however many number of years, and then say, okay, DOT, you're going to be enforcing it, when the NYPD is not really doing their job, doesn't really make any sense. And so that is sort of that is what is behind people pushing back on this. I will say, and I just I should have stressed this at the beginning, I am not, and we are not trying to reopen the bike letter that we spent months and months and months writing, that we passed and got passed last month. This is not an entire discussion to reopen that conversation. The only thing we are addressing is one paragraph that we had in that letter, where we suggested in the enforce and expand rules section that we requested that they DOT expand the registration requirements to any electric vehicle that goes faster than 18 miles per hour, excluding bikes with operable pedals. Mopeds already require registration, and city bike includes a registration number. So my question, and the last thing I will say is that our City Council member Eric Botcher is in favor, is a signatory and co-sponsor of this bill as it currently stands, which calls for all automatic registration. And so this is an opportunity for us, if we want to see amendments to the law, to ask that his name come off. I don't know, but I think I should take this opportunity. And as maybe Charlie sent around a really helpful article that sort of summarized this whole issue, but this has sort of been an issue that's much like daylighting, sort of taken over a number of the community boards recently, and is certainly sort of the hot topic. And I think while everyone else is talking about it and very engaged on this issue, it's a good time for us to be engaged as well. So I guess maybe let's have like a couple minutes of discussion here, and then I believe there are members of the public who would like to speak to this, and I want to make sure they are heard. But I don't know if people have opening thoughts before I move it over to them.
I think it's too broad.
The legislation has
The legislation is too broad.
Yeah.
It should be limited to either speed, the weight of the vehicle in some form. These mopeds, these mini bikes, the electric bicycles should be scratched. It's too cumbersome. I'm not exactly sure. Registration means you get a license plate.
Yes.
You have to go down to DMV.
Yeah.
You have to do all that. I mean, it is so mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It is,
Right. And
I was thinking what we have in our letter. I think the speed is the major criteria, and everything else is very, very
so that's why I like what we have in the letter, because I think it encourages people to buy slower bikes or encourages maybe the manufacturers to build bikes that cap out at 18 miles an hour so that they don't have to deal with the registration requirement. Because I do think there is something to, right, exactly, the overbroadness, meaning there's something to having a little bit of a registration kick of saying, all right, that there are vehicles out there that if not, yeah, go ahead.
But it's like, yeah, I think what we have is really where we want to be, but the moped is like a much bigger thing. It's registration. It shouldn't be in the bike lane, right? And I guess we are saying, should we take that a little down in the range and say, okay, anything which is over 18 miles should be registered and should not be in the bike lane, which we had that whole discussion of people saying it goes too fast, etc. And by the way, the registration is not going to address people going on the sidewalk. The sidewalk issue is not going to be addressed with that. So we need to use the registration as a tool to bring, categories of stuff where we want them to be. And I think that's what we did in that letter. And I think the legislation, the way it is not achieving what they are trying to achieve, or it's, you know, it's just to satisfy the people who say we want registration because that's the way it is.
Right.
And
Because
it's not the purpose. The purpose should be to get something done, right?
And ultimately, like, I'm sorry, but like ultimately, does registration actually solve, like the immediate issue of people
on the side
of doing all the illegal things? I mean, ultimately, if it was actually being enforced, they would be stopped and they would have a license, they would have identification available. It's like, right now, regardless of what's happening, you know, not having a license plate on the back of your bike doesn't change anything because there's no enforcement. Yeah.
So, first of all, registration would be a boondoggle, there's no enforcement, even cars, you have ghost plates, and they don't even enforce that. The thing is, unfortunately, there is a mechanism, but it's not really enforcement, it's more with the insurance companies. For example, you can't store a gasoline vehicle in a multiple dwelling, and if you do, and something happens to you, your insurance policy will be revoked. So landlords will enforce, because they don't want their insurance to be revoked. Same thing might happen down the road with the electric battery, but I'm not sure that's what we. But with gasoline, you can't bring it into a multiple dwelling.
Okay, but we're not talking about.
No, we're just talking about mopeds and stuff like that.
No, but we're.
So I'm just saying, unfortunately, the enforcement mechanism dealing with the city and state is not working, and this would be a boondoggle, basically.
Yeah,
I'm
just
gonna make
to-
this the last comment.
Yeah,
we gotta
go
public. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh, okay, yeah, just I don't know, this is from Bob Holton, who's a very conservative council member who seems to me to be very anti-bike and pro-car, that's my opinion. But as David said, we have these ghost cars, we're not currently enforcing license plates on cars. We're definitely not enforcing license plates on mopeds, which are going the wrong way, or the bike lane along the sidewalk. So why are we expanding this thing that's not like, I just don't know what problem he's trying to solve.
Exactly.
For me to get a license plate for my car, bike, and my kids, what does that solve?
Exactly.
There bad people who are bad actors who are in between an acoustic bike and a moped? Yes, but I feel like let's first, you know, it just seems like a disingenuous bill, and I did not know that Botcher was signed on to it, so I would write a letter to say he shouldn't.
Great. And I should say also from the people that I've spoken to on this issue over the last week, a number of them have pointed me to other instances where cities have tried to implement this and actually pulled back after it didn't work after a few years. So it has not shown to be a successful plan overall. But I do know that people have strong opinions on this, and I want to make sure everyone's heard. So for those who are online and in attendance, if you have comments, please raise your hand and we will move you over.
John,
I saw
that.
Andrew, no? Oh, no, you put down. Nobody wants to talk about it.
No, no. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, no.
I see Miriam, yeah.
I don't know.
No one.
Was Mary brought on?
No, I think.
No, I accidentally brought Andre over.
Miriam not accepting?
Can I ask a quick question? Are bicycles required to have, or any of these other vehicles we're talking about, are they required to have lights at night?
Yes.
Yes.
Because a number of them don't. That's
There's
another-
no enforcement.
And that is
Front
so
light.
scary.
There is no enforcement. And just, it's like the bottom line, and you know, having a registration plaque is not going to change anything. If nobody wants to, you know, stand up and enforce, you know.
Miriam, you're on. Welcome back.
Yeah, I looked at tried to find some of the data on registration, reducing the numbers of riders, which organizations like Transportation Alternatives say make it unsafer for bikers because the cars don't see them. And I really haven't seen very much. And I see their data is also largely based on information coming from Toronto pre-pandemic, which has a third of the population as New York. So I hear that from them over and over, that licensing and helmets are going to reduce riders and their safety in number with in numbers with more riders on the street, and cars will see them. And I really don't know if those statistics are, relevant to New York. And I've read that City Bike estimates 140,000 riders now post-pandemic. And if we lose 50,000 scofflaws, we still have 100,000 on the street. And I don't think the numbers that might be reduced by registration are really going to seriously impair safety of the bikers. So I just wanted to put that out because I hear that over and over and over. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Going once, going twice, and the public comment is closed. So,
I just wanted to add something. There are some other bills which have been introduced, which are very interesting, but I think maybe that's too much.
I think it's a little too much for this evening, but we are going to look at those and maybe talk about them in another.
Because some of them
are quite good, and we should probably, but we'll have to come back to that. So my sense from the discussion, although I'm sorry if anyone didn't get to speak before, please do now. Yeah.
I think the Charlie point, I think the letter should be somewhat advocating, emphasize the fact that there's no way that the city is doing anything now on mopeds and all that. So I think it should be somewhat of a strong.
But I think you can say, as we said, the regulation is too broad. And it's not, and then the enforcement is going to be nearly impossible, right?
I have a question. Mopeds, Vespas, every Vespa, which is a small, scooter, has a license plate.
Yeah.
So why is it that, I'm just, all these other mini motorcycles that are on the road so they're just selling them off the street?
Yes.
So
I think one of the bills is about point of sale.
Which is something we addressed in our previous letter.
Yes, no, but this is something we said in our letter, and this is one of the bill which is there to say you cannot sell those things without having a registration.
Seeing the bills, actually, we really covered a lot in that letter. We really hit all the things, and it's nice that we can come back to this letter now and be like, oh, do we want to fine tune this and that? But we really have talked about a lot of.
But I think the cut by speed, in my mind, is really.
I think that's a good idea because it really does.
Important thing, and especially if in the future there are camera in the bike lane, then you will catch.
Can you remind me how we got 18 miles an hour? I don't remember where that.
I think that was coming from city bike.
That's the speed of the white city bike.
The city bike.
The pedal assist city bikes.
Yeah. I think it's going to be flat.
The international regulation is going to be 5 miles. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
No, and then the delivery apps were proposing 15 miles, but it's not there yet. So we don't want city bikes to have to change everything.
Could we put in this, and I don't know if this is open to can of worms and you don't have to do it, but I'm just thinking, if we put in that we don't believe this is the solution, road redesign might solve some of what the solution is.
And also again, that was it's already we did hit that in our letter. We did infrastructure and all that.
The only question is whether we want to go off what we said last month or not. I don't think we are, and I think we are saying that's why 18 makes sense.
Yeah.
And if you were going to exclude pedal assist and limit it to 18, then we would be in favor of it, right? But then you also have to implement an enforcement, right? Because if you do that, now they are proposing an enforcement by DOT, which has to now go build an enormous infrastructure. So I'm okay if they move all the NYPD guys to DOT, but then we're opening another big can of worms, right?
Is this New York City, New York State?
New York City.
City.
So the city can register their own vehicles as opposed to.
That's what they are proposing.
So would they have to go to Albany to give
No, I think they would have a new process.
Yeah, which would be.
But that is another.
Which is, by the way, that's a great point, because it is absolutely another issue with the bill,
Right.
is to not to have a city regime that is different than the state regime about what is, I mean, it's another problem with the.
So
But it does sound like we are saying.
I think it's too wide.
I'm not saying,
ill-conceived.
well, I'm just, you know.
Right,
Yeah,
it's too wide, ill-conceived, will not achieve the goal.
Goals.
That's
We
it, and
recommend.
back to
The design.
our recommendation.
You need to reinstate what the elements.
Right, but we need to explain a little bit.
But in relation to this particular bill. Okay.
Like, and be very clear for Eric that we want him to remove the pedal assist from this bill. If it were to pass, it shouldn't cover pedal assist, for sure. Right, I mean, even if they want to invent all those things.
That's an important point, because that might be the thing that happens, say that again, explain that again for everyone.
What I'm
so that
saying
people
is,
know.
if we reiterate that definitely it should not cover pedal assist, even if the rest of the bill passes, you know, it's like you deny unless, right? And
No, sure, so you're saying that you do not have to register your pedal assisted bike, but you do have to register your bike that just zips around and is just battery powered and who knows what the heck that does.
Yes.
Or why that exists.
But the
Yeah,
letter
yeah,
is to
yeah,
ask
yeah,
him to
still has to
withdraw his support from this current bill. No,
We're just telling him,
We're
telling him,
telling
look, this is our opinion, you know.
we don't make direct asks like that, we just.
We can.
You can pick up the phone, but not the community.
Yeah.
I see.
I mean, we're allowed to, there's no
Right.
rules.
So
but
this is an indirect ask.
This is, I think this is a more.
It's more like an education ask.
Yeah.
You know, it's an education, it's like, you know, it doesn't.
But if we say this is a bill that we think is bad, that is clearly the implication.
Right.
Okay.
This is like a suggestion, this is like a suggestion from the Trilateral Commission.
Right.
After all these.
We're saying we don't think it's going to work, and you know,
We're opposed to it.
we are not, and you know, why not go back to our suggestion? And our suggestion was because achieving this and that, and then, you know, you can draw the
And we
conclusion.
can talk about ourselves, we were so smart, we were so good,
Exactly.
we looked at our letter before you. All right, so, that'll hopefully summarize that all. I'm not gonna, would anyone do a motion on that?
Yeah.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor of this letter? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Anyone present
Good.
eligible? Awesome.
You're opposed?
Thank you. And I should point out, actually, I see that Carl, Eric's chief of staff, has been on this entire time,
That's
so,
good.
he knows
It got the.
how we're thinking,
Gist of
what
it.
we're thinking. All right,
Good.
well, we got one more.
What?
This is you.
Okay.
City of
So,
Yes.
City of
The
Yes.
city of Maine.
Almost done.
So you have heard of a major rezoning plan from the mayor, which is called City of Yes. So the first part of City of Yes was about environment. The second one is about affordable housing. Rezoning in order to achieve more
The
affordable
third
housing.
one's about affordable housing.
Yeah, but this one talks.
This one's about,
Business,
business.
Business.
Yeah, I mean,
retail, opening up business.
the one that's like currently being discussed by the.
Oh, okay,
It's
I'm
not kind of
talking
a
about the
conversation.
next one.
Yeah,
I'm talking
You're
about
ahead,
the
okay.
affordable housing. That's the document I got, so.
Oh,
I- Anyway, the point about that, let's talk 2 seconds. In that document about the affordable housing, they're talking indeed about parking, reducing the parking. First of all, it's really not reducing the parking everywhere. This is most of the neighborhoods are going to keep the parking, except there is going to be a protocol to go and ask for a reduced minimum. But they are going to force them to go and ask instead of saying it's gone, right? So that's not great.
For the parking minimums.
Yes.
For
Yes,
garages.
there are some districts which are going to be no minimums, but they are all, you know, transit. And then all the other districts are going to have an option, like a special permit, where you go and you spend money to go get it, right? So that's not great. The second thing is that they are talking about special parking and special permits, and they want to make all the parking which have a special permit from 1961, make them grandfather, and they become permanent. And I'm saying no, because a lot of those parking lots are perfect sites for affordable housing. And, you know, what they should do is really give incentives to people to convert the parking lots into affordable housing rather than make them permanent parking forever, right? So that's the one comment we're making. The second comment is those parking lots have not improved their safety standards, you know, so what we have, like at the Columbus, we made those letters for the Columbus where we say you have to have a stop, you have to have a screening, you have to have a whole lot of improvements so it's safer for pedestrians. At a minimum, they should get those guys to upgrade before they give them the blessing, right? I don't want to give them a blessing, but at a minimum, right? And then they have another rule where they say, oh, so the commissioner of city planning can give, right now they can give a permit to go lower than the minimum. And what we want is also a permit to go higher than the minimum and the maximum. And they say, no, the whole idea is reduce parking. So you can see that the lobbyist of the parking industry has been there with their hands into the pie. So these are the two observations I had about this thing, and I'm going to pass it on to the land use people and say, put it in, right? That after we discuss that.
So there's something you said that's very interesting, Christine. You said, even if, no, no, because I want to tweak it. I know you can. You said, because I want to make sure I communicate this correct.
Right.
You said, or they need to come up with requirements at Columbus Avenue before they give them their blessing. I'm saying, even if we have it the way we want, reduce parking, they still should have those requirements in it.
Well, they do when they have a new building, a new requirement, a new permit.
Okay,
but the old permit in 1961 was not brought up to the standard. So the new standard were 1993, I'm sorry, 2013, but they didn't go back to all the permits and say, hey, you have to make it safer.
Well, now, no matter what, we should go back. We should make them go back and do that.
Yeah, but I'm addressing the thing that they raised, not everything else.
Right, I'm just saying, don't, because you're saying, okay, we'll give you this if you give us that. I say, sure, they'll do it and then they'll take, so we don't want them to have it at all.
Okay, got it. But I mean, you know, you see what they are doing. I mean, just like
reasons.
One quick question. This is coming and speaking with us about that. They came to see a new land use committee. We didn't talk about how they talked about
retail.
This is the third one.
This is the third one. For whatever reason, when they say City of Yes is going around, I grabbed this one from the internet instead of grabbing the right one, because I saw the housing. I said, okay, let me grab that. And I started to read that, and I'm in the middle of that of all the parking nonsense, which city planning is in love with parking, and you know, we have never been able to get them off that.
That's from some parking lot.
So we'll send that to the land use people, and that's.
I have a significant problem with 1961.
Right.
Zoning, everything before 61. 60 years later, we are in a very different place.
Right, and you know, parking lots, even in our neighborhood, would be perfect to build affordable housing, to build buildings. Why do we want to keep those open parking lots, which are like, you know, horrible things, you know, and they are overflowing on the side?
Don't be intimidated. Say your piece.
No, she has a nice parking lot under the building, right?
Speak up for the point.
It's under the building. We took care of our parking lot. Like the one, a cop car parking in front of her entrance. So I called Dugan and say, you need to fix that. And he did.
The entrance.
So 57.
Yeah.
60 minutes.
You really did that? You really did that?
Yeah, I took care of parking so that the next time there's a parking issue, she's not. We are.
There we go. So that's the trade. We'll see what happens. All right.
Okay, that's it. So I will send those comments as of transportation.
Yeah. Do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, let's vote
All
on that,
right,
just.
do we have a motion?
Right.
Motion.
All in
Okay.
favor? All opposed? Blah, 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 blah. All right, thank you very much. I think it's been a really
Awesome.
productive meeting. I'm so happy to see you all. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Hope we'll end this. Thank you, Janine, thank you so much.
Yeah, well,